Hey there! Hello to anyone who's on there early. I'm just going to check this because last time I did this, I had some snafus with the audio, which was a horrible state of affairs. So that's why I'm doing it again. Lucky for you. So I'm just going to be checking on my phone, which is not now connected to my computer because I actually think that was the problem. So I just want to check on my phone if there is any problems, and unfortunately I have to check on my phone to see your comments and reactions. So let me just check that we're broadcasting okay, and we should be, and I'll be starting in about 1 minute. So I'm just going to center myself and think good thoughts. Have a swig of my peppermint tea, maybe. Pitchcraft. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead with this. Let's just see. Let's just see here. 1 sec. Close Facebook. Full Sigmatic Coffee. Just checking to see that I'm going on live on here. And as soon as I've got confirmation that's happening, which it is, I'm going to close this so it doesn't eat up the bandwidth. And I'm good to go. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, squirrels and kittens. I'm so happy we're doing this again. I'm actually feeling more relaxed. I've got my peppermint tea. I was slightly over caffeinated before, but I'm not now. And I'm going to show you the presentation that I have prepared with you today. Hello, Mark. Good to see you. It's even nice to see you in the chat. Okay, just give me a sec. I'm using Ecamm, which is great when it works, but there are a few issues with that occasionally. So let me just switch to, that's my thing, so you can read all my emails, which you don't want. So let's get underway. Okay. I wish I could move this around, but anyway, I'll live with it. Welcome. Good to have you here. Now, just relax, because what I'm going to do is I've got a presentation. It's about 30 or 40 slides. It's not going to take too long to get to. We should be done within half an hour, maybe a little longer if I get a lot of questions. But what I'm going to do, because I'm such a nice guy, is I'm going to send you a copy of this deck afterwards. So write down some notes, but don't worry about sort of like, writing everything down, because if you email me afterwards, I will send you a copy of the deck. And if you're already registered, if you've actually said yes, that you want to come to this thing, which you probably are because you're here in the first place, but a few people came in through the group, then you're going to get a copy of the deck. So first thing I'd love to know is where everyone's from. If you could tell me where you're from, that would be great. Just type that into the feed. That gives me a sense of who I'm broadcasting to. It's 9 o'clock here in Sydney. I know it's a fairly ungodly hour in Asia, but we're sort of hitting 7 o'clock. I think we're hitting like 4 o'clock in, yep, we've got LA, 4 o'clock. What time is it in New York? New York, it's 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock in Nashville, no, 5 o'clock in Nashville. Great to see everyone here. And why are we here? Okay. My goal right now, today, is to show you that, hang on a second, just give me 1 sec. There's something here which is really going to have to change that. Okay. Oh, no, that's not going to work either. Sorry about this. Let's see if that works. Okay, my goal today is very simple. I want to show you that getting your director treatments pitch perfect is easily the most effective way to win work and increase board flow. And it's only available through Pitchcraft. They say go deep and narrow, and my niche is helping directors increase their conversion rate through writing killer treatments. That's what I do. It's all I've done for 10 years. And before that, I spent 25 years as an agency copywriter, creative, and then executive creative director. And as you're going to hear in my story today, for the latter part of that, my big focus was new business. So I am the pitch bitch. I am the pitch doctor. Hey Chris, good to see you. I'm the pitch bitch. I'm the pitch doctor. I'm the guy you want to come to if you want to get your up level your director trip. That's a horrible word, isn't it? Up level. I'm a copywriter as well. I'm sorry. A lot of the time when I'm talking, the copywriter part of my brain says, surely you could have phrased that a little better. If you want to craft your director treatments to an absolutely world-class level, I'm the guy you should come to, because I'm the guy that's focused on this exclusively for the last 10 years. And suffice to say, I've got quite good at it. And the big promise today, I think it was someone like Lewis Carroll, who said, much promise is the soul of an advertisement. It's like, if you stick with me, I will show you how you can double the speed you write your treatments and triple your conversion rate, right? So you can get through the pitches in half the time it would normally take you, and you can win 3 times as many jobs. Wouldn't that be good? What I'd like to do is I'd like to do a quick recap on what I did on the 2 past lives. And what I did there is we went through the challenges that most of my clients faced. Essentially, I put this together because I've been working with clients for 10 years, writing treatments exclusively, directors and producers all over the world, a range of different levels. And essentially the chief problems that they have with writing treatments is that they lack confidence. They don't like going into sales mode. They don't like being a salesman. A lot of them just don't know how to start. They don't have a cohesive structure or a process to follow. People hate doing it. I get that. For one reason, I really like writing treatments. And I think one of the reasons I like writing treatments, thanks Chris, one of the reasons I like writing treatments is because I'm writing them for other people. I'm sure if I was writing this for myself, it would be a bit more difficult. It's funny, it's like putting this presentation together actually took me a lot longer than it does to write a treatment, and there's no reason why it should, because I do this stuff every day. But when you're doing as a creative, when you're doing stuff for yourself, it's a lot more difficult than when you're doing it for other people. So I think that's part of it. But also, it's a grind. There's never enough time. The agency is, there's always a producer melting in the background. It's always screamingly urgent. It's always at an inconvenient time. And people just, creative people just don't like being pushy. They would love if their work could speak for itself. But unfortunately, a lot of the time it doesn't. Or unfortunately, it's like, maybe your work isn't quite as good as that other director they're looking to. Maybe he's got a tighter reel. Maybe they're going to be using you not on the basis of what you've done, but more of what you can do. And that's what you need to articulate. So that's why people struggle with writing treatments. But on the plus side of that, the flip side is, what are the opportunities? Now, once you can get confident at new business, let me tell you, it is a complete game changer. A lot of it is mindset, but also, which I'm going to talk about, but a lot of it is just some quick and dirty tips, tricks, and techniques that I'm going through. But apart from spending less time writing treatments, and apart from winning more jobs, which, let's face it, is, those are 2 massive benefits anyway. But what comes from that, when you get better at writing treatments, is you get more confidence in yourself, in your vision as a creative. You're able to communicate with certainty. You're able to talk with conviction. One of the things that I had a post-it above my computer, and it said monster conviction. And I thought, that's, when I'm speaking on behalf of my clients, That's how I try to communicate with monster conviction. It's like, I know what you want, I understand it, you're in the right place, I can give you what you need. You better make sure I've got time in my schedule to deliver it. That's what good communicators are able to do. You have a structure to follow. I can give you a proven process to get your treatments pitch perfect each and every time, and that takes a lot of the stress out of things. You'll get much higher board flow. In another part of the presentation, I'm going to talk about a few success principles. But once you start, once you start accelerating, once you start getting momentum, more and more work starts coming your way. The more boards you have, the more the pitches you're going to win. The more pitches you win, the more opportunities you have to work. The more choices you have, the more options you have, the more choices you have, the more power you have, the more success you bring into your life. It all builds upon each other. And also, another strange thing is, I think that when you become a better communicator, certainly in my experience, is you get as you're able to talk about your ideas and your vision with more clarity, then your creative awareness also grows exponentially on top of that. You have a far more penetrating sense of what you can do, and how you can really expand the potential of the storyboards you see. So let's quickly go back 25 years to the boardroom of the Hong Kong Jockey Club. The Hong Kong Jockey Club was, probably still is actually, the richest financial institution in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong is not short, let me tell you, of filthy rich financial institutions. And I was in there in my capacity as creative director at JWT, and the senior person there was a lady called Grace Atkinson. And Grace Atkinson came across as this wonderful sort of benevolent-like lady, sort of very, very statesman-like, very patriarchal. But let's just say her nickname was the Black Widow, and let's just say that she had a dark side to her. And I knew that I was going to be getting sort of most of that dark side, because we were supposed to be presenting to the board of the Hong Kong Jockey Club at 9 o'clock, and it was now 10:30, and we hadn't presented because the creative, which Muggins here was in charge of, the creative presentation wasn't ready because the tech wouldn't work. Like I said, we're going back to the Stone Ages now. What we were doing is we were presenting a brand activation for, hey Mike, good to see you. We were presenting a brand activation for one of their exhibitions. And like I said, this was a long time ago. This was in the mid-90s, and so we'd gone to this tech company, and they said, "Oh, we can do a computer simulation of this. We can put the whole thing together, and people will walk through it, and they'll see exactly what it looks like." And we go, "Great, make it work." And they said, "Okay," but they didn't make it work. And they didn't make it work. We hadn't scheduled enough time for a rehearsal. We'd got the pitch on the basis of Grace, the chairman's relationship with someone on the board, and that's the only reason they were seeing us in the first place. And now now we were looking like complete and utter muppets, 90 minutes behind. And I've never spoken about this story before. It's really something that I buried deep and distant deep down in my psyche. But when I was putting these, when I was writing the presentation for this, I thought, okay, what got me into pitching in the first place? And it was this event, because now I've spoken about this. This is about the fourth time I've spoken about it, so I'm actually a little happier than I was the first time. But the first time, I kind of freaked myself out, because talking about it, it's one thing to make some notes. It's another thing to talk about it. Frankly, it's another thing to talk about it to a green dot. That's one of these things about these lives, is it's kind of weird. You're all out there, and you can see me. I can't see any of you guys. I'm just trying to maintain eye contact with this green dot. But this is the single most traumatic experience I've been through in my life. Now, it shouldn't be. I've been in accidents. I've been in fights. I was in a ferry crash where we were on this junk, and this great big Hong Kong ferry plowed into us, and the ferry just disintegrated. and we all ended up in the water, and it was okay because I'm fairly confident in the water. And all these boats were speeding to us, and people got killed because they got run over by speedboats who were coming to rescue us. That was carnage. I've been on the end of sort of very, very bad situations involving large amounts of narcotics in Southeast Asia. I've done stupid things like, we've knocked over people. I won't go into it, right? But it's like my life has been threatened physically. But none of that feels as bad as this did. Sitting in that presentation, knowing that we'd fucked up completely, knowing that we'd kept the board of the richest financial institution in Hong Kong waiting 90 minutes, knowing that sort of like, Grace Atkinson was going to be wearing a new pair of earrings fashioned from my scrotal sac. It just absolutely broke my soul. And frankly, it's kind of interesting for another point of view, because the only thing that got me through that experience was the fact that I was going to this big pissy lunch it was a Friday. On Friday lunch, there was this tradition called the Second Friday Club. Back in Hong Kong during the day, the governor and all his heads of department had something called the First Friday Club, where they'd all go out for lunch on the first Friday, and they'd all decide how they were going to run the territory for the month coming up for the upcoming month. But they, the number twos thought, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So they set up something called the Second Friday Club, where they'd just go and have lunch and get pissed. And they'd all go down to Wan Chai, which is where all the go-go bars are. And it's, if you want some sort of like, debauchery in Hong Kong, that's where you go. And the tradition carried on. And anyway, I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter how bad this thing is. I just have to stay alive. I have to physically stay alive until lunchtime, and then I can just go and get pissed and pretend this stuff never happened. So that's what got me through it. Essentially, the experience of this appalling pitch presentation broke my soul. On a deeper level, the reason why that happened is I'm a big fan of the Enneagram. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. The Enneagram is it's this fairly ancient, it's like 2,000 years old, but what it does is it splits everyone up into personality types. And the personality type is based on the childhood wound that you suffered as a child. And my childhood wound is that I came from an unsafe and hostile family environment. And so my thing is, I want to feel safe. I want to feel in control. I need to be able to protect myself. I need to be able to protect other people. And this pitch in the Hong Kong Jockey Club was the situation in my life when I felt most out of control, least able to protect myself, least able to keep myself safe. Which is weird because it was, there was nothing life-threatening to it. It was really it was my ego that was at stake. But it was a time when I was in active addiction, and active addiction, if it builds one thing, is it builds the ego, it builds grandiosity. And so, that's why it was so traumatic for me. Anyway, coming out of that, I made, it wasn't really a conscious decision, but I think when you go through something that you really don't enjoy, part of your brain goes, okay, we're never going to do that again. And I didn't want to see myself in that situation again. So what I did is, I suppose, it's like when you go through these situations, you can either move towards the danger or move away from the danger. But I started to get myself involved in more pitches. Involved in more pitches that I wasn't running, okay? Let me be very, very clear about that. And as I was the only, or one of the few, English-speaking copywriters within JWT Asia, this all happened when I was at JWT Hong Kong, I found it quite easy to weasel my way onto regional pitches, which I really enjoyed because you got a lot of free travel. You got to fly out of Hong Kong for 2 weeks and get put up in some nice hotel. It was also very useful from a political point of view. So I used to fly around the region, here, there, and everywhere, and I became known as a bit of the pitch guy. And I'd fly in, I'd have a look at all the work, I'd translate everything that needed to be translated into English. I'd brainstorm with the creatives. You know, I'd because I was quite a good political player, I'd sort of like feed a lot of stuff back to the country heads, and that's another reason why I liked it, because it was great to get to know the senior management of the JWT region. Long story short, I was instrumental in the JWT winning the Thai International account, which they pitched for in 1997, which was a huge Thai International, the airline. We pitched against Ogilvy and Saatchi's, and we won it. And that pitch was led by a guy called Mark Capra. God bless Mark. Just, you know, one of the few suits who'd read a book on project management, because he ran that pitch beautifully. And we won the account, and it was the first time where I actually saw, from a project management point of view, the discipline and structure that you need in a good new business pitch. And from then on, I became a pitch specialist at JWT. I stayed there for a couple of years. I then moved to Australia. I did an MBA because that enabled me to consolidate my management and my strategic skills. And because of that, I went back to Asia as executive creative director at BBDO Malaysia, and then back to JWT for Indochina, executive creative director around Cambodia, Laos, Burma, and Vietnam. And how does that relate to director's treatments? Well, all that information sort of congealed in my head and sort of stayed there. And it didn't really sort of come out again until I've been writing treatments full time for about 18 months. And I've got to this point where I got sober now. So I've been sober for about a year. And I was in Bali. And prior to, I got sober in Malaysia, and the meetings in Malaysia weren't that crash hot. But in Bali, they really were. They had really, really good AA meetings, and they had really good NA meetings. And at the time, I thought NA was much, much cooler. So I'd arrived there on a Friday evening, and it was too late to get to one. No, I'd got to one meeting, and it was Saturday morning, like really early morning, because I'm a very early morning creature. And I was like, I go, right, okay, this morning, this weekend, I've got 4 meetings to get to. I've got the 7 a.m. AA, 7 p.m. NA, and the same the next day. It's 4 meetings. And in my head, I just really wanted to get to meetings, because meetings for me were a bit of a obsession, actually, in early recovery, as they should be. But what also happened was I had 2 big jobs come in. Nothing, they were both for A-list directors. One was from Olivier Megaton, who was the director on Taken 2, and he was doing a car job, I think, for BMW in China. And the other one was a L'Oreal A-list beauty director, French guy. Someone who's still a client of mine, so I won't mention who it is. And again, another job for China. And no big deal. I mean, that's what I do, But these 2 jobs back to back, it was quite a lot, work-wise. But where my head was, like, I've got to make my recovery meetings, right? That's in my head. That's what was really important. So I remember I sat down and I thought, okay, I need to come up with a structure so that I can get some economies of scale, so that what I do for this, I can turn around and I can do the same for that. And that was the genesis of the Pitchcraft process right there. It was like, okay, how can I have a proven structure that I can go through each and every time, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time I write a treatment? And that's what I've been doing for 10 years. That's why I've been working with clients. And when clients come to me, because clients don't necessarily come to me because they can't write treatments. A lot of the time, they're very good at writing treatments, but because they're very good at writing treatments, they've got a lot of work on, and they're busy. They're either too busy, too lazy, or too high, so they hire me. And I've got, I would say, probably 8 to 10%. I would say 95% of my work, 90% of my work comes from 8 or 9 clients. And they're all, each and every one of them, very, very successful communicators in their own right. even though they hire me to do their stuff for them, they're all able to communicate exceptionally well. And that's one thing that I've noticed. All successful creatives are outstanding communicators. Not all outstanding communicators not all outstanding communicators are successful creatives, but all successful creatives are outstanding communicators. And this sort of tied in with something else that I'd realized, is that, I remember when a long time ago, again, part of the sales process when I was at school, is someone said, if you want to be able to make money for other people. So that really crystallized in my head. So I was like, okay, what kind of replicable process structure can I give my clients so that they have this, this success formula to drive their business? And what it translates into is something that, I like to call the A-list advantage for the purposes of this presentation. I think if you look at any area in life, you must be familiar with the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 law. It's the idea that it comes from an Italian economist, and he discovered that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the people. And it holds true to anything. If you go to a wedding, sort of like, 90% of the booze is drunk by sort of 10% of the people, and 80% of the food is eaten by 20% of the people. It's one of those sort of like, disproportionate laws of life. And there's also an idea that's very, very similar in the Bible called the Matthew principle. And it's where they say, to those that have, more will be given. And for those that do not, even that will be taken away. And what that talks about is a sort of, when you're cycling into success, it can become a virtuous circle. It's like, when things are going well, they can accelerate. And conversely, when your life's sort of like circling the drain, it's like, things can get very bad very, very quickly if you don't take care of things. So this is a phenomena that I've noticed in my most successful clients. And it's one of the things that I focused on in Pitchcraft. And for to sort of shift in that direction, essentially there are 3 shifts that need to occur, basically. The first one is to realize that, what do? We make shit sexy, right? Selling should be seduction. If you're a director, the client is hiring you to make him look cool. I mean, not in every single brief, but really that's kind of like, you could take almost every brief ever written. And the same thing is like, please, Mr. Director, or Mrs. Director, or Ms. Director these days, make my stuff cool. As a director, you're being hired for your taste, right? The agency, the client, they can come up with the idea. They don't know how to execute it. They don't know how to bring it into life. They don't know how to make it cool, right? We are beauty creators. That's what we do. We take the mundane and we turn it into the magnificent. And all my top clients have absolutely got this not only down pat, but they're able to communicate it. The other thing is they all tend to have a very specific mindset. Heavily focused on persuasion. They're all very, very charming. They're all urbane. They're all charismatic in their own way. Some are quite belligerent, but mostly they're very, very persuasive individuals. And how does that manifest? Pretty much, they're always calm, cool, even-tempered, and confident. Confidence is infectious. It really, really is, and it's also very, very cool. So you're thinking, okay, well, that's great, Paul, but how do I do that? Well, how, on a practical level, how you do this, if you're going to write something down, this is what you want to write down. Whenever I write a treatment, there are 3 things that I try and communicate. Really, only 3 things. They're easy to remember because they all begin with E. Excitement, enthusiasm, and expertise, okay? That's excitement for the brief, for the idea, for the script. Enthusiasm for the project and the shoot, and expertise, I can do this. It sounds evident, But guess what? Common sense is not necessarily common practice. This is where a lot of my clients struggle. They can't actually come through and say, yes, I know what's difficult about this, but I can crack it. Americans typically have no problem with this. Brits, 50-50. Europeans a lot of the time struggle. They hope that their amazing image research or their reel is going to do the selling for them. It won't. You have to be able to be really, really explicit and tell the client in no uncertain terms, you're going to have a problems here, here, and here, because this is difficult for these reasons. But don't worry about it. I can do it. This is how I've solved these problems before. You have to do that, because if you don't do it, they won't know it, and you won't get the work, right? You know, as much as clients hire because they like you, they also hire because they're afraid that someone else will screw it up. So if you can absolutely convince them that the risk is mitigated, minimized with you, you're in a very, very powerful position. So that's what you need to do. Let's talk about what you shouldn't be doing. Here are 5 mistakes that generally send most pitchers into the bin of history. Number 1, you can't bore a client into buying something, right? And I've seen way too many decks that are just, it's about education. What you want from what you want to do when you write a director's treatment is you want to make it easy for the client to say yes. You want to make it easy for them to say, absolutely. This chick, she knows how to do this. She knows how to execute. Let's give her the job. You've got to remember, data has got no convincing power, right? Information has no convincing power. Stories are what persuade us, because stories link information with emotion. So always write as if you're telling a story, use examples, use personal anecdotes, okay? You always, always, always use information, but in an emotional context. Believing that pitching is sleazy, that's just something that's not going to serve you very well, okay? If you want to be a successful creative, you have to become successful at selling your own work. Because if you can't sell your own work, then you won't get the opportunities to shoot the type of commercials that you want to shoot. If you don't get those opportunities, you're not going to develop as a creative. So it's absolutely a mandatory skill. And then that's what separates creatives in agencies, right? A lot of, and I speak as one myself, it's like, am I the best writer in the world? No. It's like, you know, I'm an okay writer, but they're writers that have got so much more, I'm actually a good thinker. I don't actually, you know, when you're a good thinker, and I did a whole webinar about this, if you've got something clever to say, you don't need to worry about finding a clever way of saying it. And so, for me, it's like I knew copywriters who were way more talented than I was, but I was an okay writer. I was definitely better than average at coming up with ideas, but I had that confidence. I could stand up in front of clients. I could communicate. I wasn't afraid at sort of like, you know, waving the boards around. And that's what got me to creative director by the time I was 30. I was JWT's youngest creative director, just on the basis that I became good at selling my work and other people's work. It's just vital. Third thing is, there's one person on this call that does this, but very, very few of my clients do, and that's the magic bullet. One of the things that I do with clients after I've written a treatment for them is I say, look, would you like me to give you the magic bullet? And they go, what's the magic bullet, Paulie? And I go, it's this. What I do is I write a little 2-minute film script, right? And when I say film script, it's just something that they can flick on, open their laptop like this, or open their phone and pretend they're having a sort of like 2-minute FaceTime with a friend. And I say, what you're going to do is you're going to send this to the agency and the client, because we've just done a treatment. It looks amazing. It's 2,000 words of, 2,000 words of well-crafted sales poetry. But, are they going to read the whole thing? If they do, how are they going to go through it? It's most likely now it's just like flick, 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 flick on the phone. But what they will do is they will watch a short film clip. Getting people to buy from you is getting them through these 3 stages: know, like, trust. Nothing does that faster than face-to-face. preferably in real life, but if not, on a film. So what I do is I tell them, okay, here's open your phone up, start shooting, and say, hey, just finished the treatment, really excited to be pitching on this. Just wanted to give you some thoughts, top line, about how we're going to nail this. And then just say, hang on, I've got some notes. And then instead of looking at your notes, just read verbatim what I've written for you. Just read it. Doesn't matter about your performance, doesn't matter about the lighting, doesn't matter how many takes, just do it. Works almost every time. There's not one thing that I've learned when it comes to pitching direct treatments that has a better impact than this, sending the pitch film. No big idea. Now, in the pitch film, what I do is I always encapsulate the big idea, like how you as a director are going to nail this treatment. And you have to be clear on that. You actually have to look at it and say, okay, have I solved their problem? First of all, why are they advertising in the first place? What do they want? What is their problem? Have I solved it? Okay? And the way you solve it is by having a big idea, a clear and succinct idea. And a good way to test whether you have that idea or not is, imagine if there's a junior client. The junior client's read your treatment, their senior client, the marketing director, hasn't. Is the junior client able to convince the senior client that you're the right person for the job? So can the junior client say, you know what, we really need to use Stephen Kramer for this. He did this amazing job for Ford, which is on his showreel, and he did this incredible thing with the Russian arm, which is exactly what we want for the chase sequence of this film. And guess what? He's filmed in China before. It's literally something as simple as that. So people go, we need to use him because. It's the because. And also a good thing is, when you've written your treatment, say, would I hire me? Okay, it's like, what is the one or two things that you want to communicate to the client over and over and over again as to why you're right over this. Not just can you do this job, but why you're the best choice for this job. Also, and this comes back to, sorry, one sec, I'm just going to have a sip of my peppermint tea. Lack of hot cognition. Hot cognition is just agency speak for cool. If you look at that picture there, it's like, what are those kids doing? What are they singing? We don't know, but we'd love to be part of it because, wow, they look cool. Humans are social animals. We all want to be part of the group, right? And we all live in a dominance hierarchy, and we're all sort of like, we're kind of okay where we are, but it would always be nicer to be a little higher up on that dominance hierarchy. And if you like, I heard it described that the advertising industry is basically a huge industry selling artificial self-esteem. Hot cognition is actually wanting something before you fully understand it. So that could be a human in a bar that you find sexually attractive. That could be a car. That could be a book cover. That could be a director. It's wanting something before you fully understand it. It's basically making yourself, making your proposition, and making your talents look really, really sexy. And in order to do that, you don't necessarily have to explain it. You can do it through scarcity, you can do it through intrigue, you can do it through charisma, you can do it through virtue. It's essentially the Jedi mind trick. So right now, so what I've done is I've taken all this and I'm going to share with you 5 new pillars that have enabled me to become the world's #1 treatment writer. But before I do that, I'd like to know, first of all, who's all about taking action? Are you an action taker? If you believe in taking big action, type yes into the feed. I'd really like to see them. Thanks, Mark. And also, if you've heard something already that resonates with you, let me know what that is. Just type that into the feed, because what I want is I want to be talking to people who are willing to take some action. Because we're going to play a little game. Who's into action? Yep, good. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Mike. So let's start by doing something a little different. Imagine, let's fast forward into the future. Let's go to sort of 3 to 6 months from now. Imagine where you can create, if you can create an outcome where all of a sudden, 3 to 6 months from now, you're able to write your treatments in less than half the time, and you're able to win you're able to win 3 times as many jobs as you do now. And imagine that your board flow has also increased on the basis of that. What would that life look like for you, where you're winning more work, you've got more board flow, you've got a higher conversion rate, you're feeling financially secure, right? The financial hit that so many people have taken in the industry has been ameliorated. Type in the feed, what kind of, hey Remo, type in the feed, what kind of characteristics would that person have? Because that's the people that we're building towards. Okay? Success is always an evolution. Success isn't necessarily about doing things. They're not about doings, they're about becomings. I've certainly found that in my own life. So here's the secret. It's in one word. Whoops, we've done the imagination game. Smack. I'll tell you how I came up with this. Someone invited me onto this podcast, and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to do it. And I looked, and I suddenly saw that they've had some actual real heavy hitters on that podcast. They had Neil Patel, they had Grant Cardone, the 10X guy. I think they actually had Tony Robbins as well. I'm like, wow, I better get my shtick down pat. And I thought, okay, so, what's my success formula? What are some principles that I've applied in my life? And, when I was executive creative director at an agency, what are the things that I tried to imbue to other creative people? And it didn't take me long, but I came down to it. SMAC. SMAC stands for spirit, mindset, action, creative, and killer. Those are the 5 stages. Spirit, mindset, action, creative, and killer. So let's start with the first one. Spirit. I'm, anyone who's been on, who's followed me for a while knows that I'm in recovery. I'll be 10 years clean in next August. So in order for me to be effective as a creative, everything that I do has to come from a soul-centered place. I really believe that, there are different bands of intelligence. There's IQ, there's EQ, there's spatial intelligence, but I also really think there's something called, like, spiritual intelligence. Spiritual intelligence is when you're grounded, you're in tune, and for me, it means that I'm a channel of God. Now, you don't necessarily have to believe in God. You don't need to be a Christian. I am. It's great. You should too. But anyway, it doesn't matter what your faith is. It's the idea that it's almost like the Greek idea of the muses. It's like the idea that sort of like, true creativity, doesn't necessarily come from within you, but it comes through you. And the idea is that you're a channel. The idea is that you are in a place where you can get into a state of flow. For me, the first part of getting into that flow state is having a strong spiritual practice. And I've got a couple of tools that I do to work with clients so that they can improve their creative health, their internal health, their internal creative health. One of those is Ikigai. And I've got this workshop that I do where I take people through their Ikigai, which is their reason for being. Some other tools that I've used when I've worked with people on this have been stuff like the Future Authoring Suite, which is where you want to see yourself in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. It was a suite that was designed by Jordan Peterson, and it's multiple choice and a little bit of writing. Very, very useful. Something else that's incredibly useful and actually a lot of fun, and the test will take you like 10 minutes, is the Enneagram. That will split you up into one of 9 people, and everyone that I know who's done it has gone, oh my God, it's incredible. It's so useful, because what it does is it gets down to what happened to you as a kid, and what happened to you as a kid impacts into what you're like as an adult. And the third thing that I do when I'm working with people on this is the big 5 aspect personality test, which is, it's most militaries and governments in the world use this test. It's currently the best respected test so that you can see how your personality ranks across 5 big dimensions. And when you've got the 3 of those together, you get a really good insight into who you are as a person and how you can ground yourself. Because grounding yourself is important. It's the first stage of getting into flow. The second stage is mindset. So it's like the first stage, spirit, is getting your mind clear. It's clearing a space so that you can think. And phase 2 is how to think about pitching, right? And this is so important because, it's the old cliches that you see on Facebook, that your attitude is your altitude. It's so true. One of the things that I mentioned earlier on about the A-list advantage is that my A-list clients, my most successful clients, all have a persuasion mindset. My mindset is always default aggressive. Again, comes back to me being an 8 on the Enneagram. Hang on a sec. Can't change that. It's about having a persuasion focus. It's about having powerful intent. It's how to think about what I'm going to be thinking about. And one of the things that I do when I'm working with clients on this is I've got a personal brand audit, which is very, very useful because it'll give you a sense of what your brand is like at the moment. And I've also got this thing that I do called a core story exercise, which is a series of it's just under 20 questions, and it helps you explore your narrative identity as a creative, so that you can understand that, and then you can polish up and package that narrative moving forward, because that's what's going to inform how you write your treatments and how you present yourself as a creative. Third phase, action, right? So it's all very nice, sort of like sitting in the lotus position and sort of like singing hymns and chanting, and then sort of like reciting affirmations and getting really zen, until you actually go out there and start kicking butt and taking names. This is where I start talking about routine. This is where I start talking about discipline. This is where I start talking about sort of like, how to smash through resistance. I'm going to be writing a book soon, and probably the title will be New Levels, New Devils. If you're a creative person, if you're an artist, we all have to do battle with resistance each and every day. It's never easy. It's it's never easy. It's there's all we can always fall prey to procrastination. We can always, certainly for me, I can always feel fear or anxiety, and I just have to move through it. For me, I've got a very, very military mindset. I heard a great one yesterday. Win. And what WIN stands for is what's important now? How do I prioritize and execute? What do I need to do next? What is the most important thing that I need to do today? Action is not just about doing a lot of stuff, but it's about doing the right stuff. And I've got a whole productivity planner that I can share with you. And also, how this relates to treatments is I've got a very simple structure, a very simple checklist, so that you know what you need to do at each and every point. When we're into action, because the great thing about getting into action is that's when motivation appears. Inspiration is for amateurs. It's like, we're professionals, all right? We're not Muppets, okay? We're all sort of here. We're a lot of people pay us a lot of money to do what we do. So we can't wait to be inspired. We have to be able to get going right away. And the best way that I found to do that is to get into action, because that's when motivation appears. Then we get into the creative. So once we've had spirit, we've got mindset, we're into action. Then we can start finessing the creatives. And I've got a lot of, I've got 3 worksheets. No, I've got 2 worksheets. One on pro tips, another, no, 3. One on writing, one on technique. I've got another worksheet on how to create board flow. This is how you finesse your creative ability and creative exercises to get the juice going. I've got a, again, this falls into the work that I do within the structure of Pitchcraft. And then finally, killer. This is how you put the finishing touch. This is the real craft to the treatment, the craft to your personal brand. It's like the polish. This is like, you know, this is the post-production of you as a creative, and also, you know, what you do in terms of your treatments. This is where I can show you, for example, how you can start building your own client list off LinkedIn very, very simply. Again, something else which will, you know, help you increase board flow. Board flow basically comes from, you know, making sure that you manage your reputation, you're on people's radar, and you're really, really working those relationships. And frankly, most directors and producers are really bad at maintaining relationships. To do that, you need some kind of CRM system. But that's one of the things that I show you in this phase, how to set that up and how to get it working for you so that you're always on default aggressive. You're always, you know, you're always on people's radar. You're always you're always in people's inbox. Not always, but once a month, which is enough. Because let's face it, hustle beats talent when talent doesn't hustle. I mean, you know, who agrees with that? We all know plenty of people that are a lot less talented than we are, that, you know, have been a lot more successful. Why? Because they work hard at it. So what I'd love to know is, please type in the feed what's been valuable so far. I'd love to know what's resonated and what's been useful, as we've we've covered these 5 pillars: SMAC, spirit; M, mindset; A, action; C, creative; K, killer. What's resonated today? The reason I ask is because typically when I work with people, I attract generally about, you know, 1 of 3 different types of people. The first lot are uncomfortable writing pictures, right? They just, you know, they've never done it. They don't really want to do it. They've got no idea what to do. So it's like, Paulie, help me. I'm like, okay, don't worry. I'm here. I'll do it for you. The second type are people who've been pitching before, but they're not very good at it. They lack confidence. They don't have a structure. They're not sure where to start. And there is one third group of people. It's small, but it's significant. And which are people who are really hungry to learn. They've worked, you know, they've written. Thanks, Remo. They've you know, they're good at writing pictures, but they want to get better. The reason I say that, because if you want to grow, there's kind of like 2 different ways to do it. Okay. You know, there's the easy way and the hard way. The easy way is if you've got a proven path, a roadmap, if you like, you've got the tools and you've got the support and you've got coaching from someone, from a mentor and from your peers. You know, trust me, this is a lesson that I learned very, very profoundly in my own life, because I'm in recovery. It's like you get 2 types of people in recovery. They come to a meeting. One type gets a sponsor, starts doing the 12 steps, keeps going to meetings, prays, meditates, does service, helps other people, starts sponsoring others. That's what you're supposed to do. That sounds like the hard way, but it's actually the easy way. What most people do is they go to meetings, they don't get a sponsor, they sit around, they relapse, they come back to meetings, they don't do any work. Now that looks easier, but trust me, the pain and suffering that you go to, is definitely makes it much, much, much harder. Yeah, this is on a lag. There's about a minute delay. So, hard or easy, that's the choice for you today. Because if you want to do it the easy way, I have something that you might be very, very interested in. Sorry, I'm just rearranging my notes. Got high humidity here, so my post-its are falling off. So I think there are two big questions that you need to ask yourself, both on a professional and on a philosophical level. The first one is, who are you? It's it's funny. I remember someone asked me this question when I was in Hong Kong once. I'd been clean for about a year, and I was in this bar in Hong Kong because they were actually doing an AA convention in the hotel that I was staying at, and I was talking to this guy, and he said, "Oh, sorry, I've got this wrong. This is for the next question." Actually, it doesn't matter. I'll go into it. The two big questions are, who are you and what do you want? Right? And this guy said to me, he said, "What do you want?" And I go, "Well, I'm in recovery, so really what I want to do is step 3, right? I just want to know what God's will is for me and have the ability to carry it out." And he goes, I go, "Yep." And he said, "What do you really want?" And I go, "Rolex Daytona Cosmograph in pink gold with baguette diamonds." And it's like, what we want is always on a spectrum. There is what we think we want, there is what we really want, but no, isn't really very good for us. It's a tricky thing. And one of the things that I found in order to sort of answer these questions, who are you and what do you want, is that you need to do some inner work where you can look at your limiting beliefs. And limiting beliefs are what keep you small. Limiting beliefs are what creates fear and what creates anxiety in your life. And my journey has been, essentially it could all boil down to sort of like, doing stuff afraid, choosing to let go of fear and move into courage. And a lot of the time, for me, courage is just doing stuff while I'm still afraid. That's what I've done. That's what you need to do. Because where we're going, where we're all heading is, this industry is no joke. This is one of the most competitive industries on the planet, advertising. I would say it currently ranks 4th. I think, 3 industries that are more competitive is finance, fashion. Fashion is just ridiculous. Fashion, there was 3. Fashion, tech, probably tech. Wouldn't want to be in tech in terms of competitiveness. But after that, marketing, brutal, right? It was competitive, in 2019, it was competitive. 2020, we've had COVID. That's shaken up so much. That's changed so many practice. We're now in a period of hyper competition, okay? Everyone's going to have to up their game to survive next year, right? That's not me fear-mongering. That's just how it is. And incidentally, that's what Martin Sorrell thinks as well. Martin Sorrell was my old boss at WPP. He's since moved on and set up S4 Capital. If you don't follow him, you should, because, I don't think anyone understands the industry as well as he does. And, he's just said it's like, things are going to change. There's going to be a huge shakeout in the market. And, you need to really understand best practice now so that you can evolve into next practice. And that's why one of the most important things that you can do is to upgrade your pitch game. And that's essentially what I mean by creating a big life. If you want a big life for yourself, it means that a big life comes from more power, more success. Those are results of having more choices and more options. You get more choices and more options for winning more work. You win more work through being able to write better treatments and smash pitches. Because essentially it comes down to 2 things. I put that in today because I was doing my Krav Maga at the moment. Impact and income. That's what I would like to offer you. A chance to make a bigger impact with the creative that you do and increase the level of income that comes into your life. So imagine 3 to 6 months from now, again, this exercise, you're getting what you want. You've got more board flow, you've got a higher conversion rate, you're winning more jobs, you've got a tighter reel, you feel happier, you feel more confident, you feel more creative, you feel more calm. Ask yourself, is that the kind of person that makes a commitment? Is that the kind of person that takes a risk? Is that the kind of person that moves out of their comfort zone? That's the kind of person you need to become to move forward. So, what kind of new actions are you willing to take? Right? Are you going to stay where you are? Are you going to stay doing the same old? Or are you going to make a positive change? Are you going to learn some new skills? Are you going to try and evolve? Are you going to make sure that you're on the right-hand side of that bell curve when the shakeout comes next year? Because what I have now, are you ready? Actually, there's a little audio thing that I could do, which I could press applause, but I'm not going to do it. What I've got coming up soon is something that I'm calling the Pitchcraft Accelerator. Most of you know that I've put together an online masterclass called Pitchcraft. If you take the Pitchcraft Accelerator, you'll get a number of things. The first thing that you will get is immediate access to my masterclass, Pitchcraft. So that's got everything that I've spoken about and a lot more. It's 12 plus 2 bonus modules with worksheets, everything that you need to know to up your pitch game. But the accelerator, so if you decide to join me on the accelerator, you'll get access to all of that instantly. But what we'll also do is there will be a series of 6 live workshops, 1 a week for 6 weeks. And we will cover everything that is in the Pitchcraft Masterclass at a granular level. And we will also focus on those 5 pillars: spirit, mindset, action, creative, and killer. All the areas so that you can understand who you are as a director, as a producer, as a creative, refine your creative DNA, look at your personal brand, express it better in social, express it better in your website, and express it better most effectively in your treatments. There's going to be 6 live workshops for about 90 minutes, and there's going to be 6 group coaching sessions. And on top of that, there's going to be a high-level mastermind, because I'm looking at probably getting, I'm not sure, but I'm looking at probably about 12 to 20 people is all that I want for this case study round. Thanks, John. And what I want to do is I want to get a small cohort of people together to sort of like, a lot of people have done the masterclass in the past and they've enjoyed it, and there's a couple of people on this call today, but I really wanted to bring a sort of like live mentoring, live coaching component in this. And of course, all the stuff that I'm going to be doing in this is actually going to be recorded, and it will go into the Pitchcraft Masterclass. So you get the Masterclass as it is, plus all this new content. You're going to get 6 more modules and 6 more worksheets. So it's going to be a blast. The good thing about this for you is you can relax in terms of new business, right? This is absolutely state of the art. There's no one else in the industry offering anything like this in terms of winning new business for directors and producers, in terms of up-leveling your treatment game, in terms of getting your pictures pitch perfect. I'm the only guy on the planet that does this, and I've been doing it for 30 years. I've got pretty good at it. And it's now in your reach. It's like a lot of people have, the reason I'm doing this now is obviously the best time to do this is 2021, and I'm going to be doing it in 2021. But I wanted to do it in 2020 because I wanted to do it fast. I wanted to learn. When I do it in 2021, it's going to cost a fortune, because I will have sort of like really fine-tuned the learnings that I've got from this round. This is the case study round. This is an opportunity for you guys to come in on the ground floor with me, so that I can share this stuff with you immediately. Now, a lot of people are mentally just checked out from this year. It's like, you know what, this is great, Paul, but it's like, I don't want to look until to next year. I don't want to work with people like that. Those people, I'm happy to sort of like sign them up next year, but if you've got an attitude like that, you're not going to make it. There's 90 days left in this year, almost. There's a lot that can be done. Like I said, in terms of mindset, you've got to get that winning mindset to go into 2021, because it's going to be brutal out there. So if this sounds interesting, the accelerator gives you access to Pitchcraft, the masterclass. It's 6 live workshops. It's 6 group coaching sessions, and a high-level mastermind. It'll enable you to become a new person, right? When I talked about sort of success is becoming. If you work with me for 6 weeks, then together we will create a shift, right? And you will go from being sort of like you will become the professional version 2.0. This is a course that I want to change your life. This is a course that I want to really create some transformation. That's why I put it over 6 weeks. I was actually thinking of doing it over 1 week, 5 days, but if we're working together for 6 weeks, that's enough time for some new habits to really, really kick in, and for them to be a real transformation. So if that sounds interesting, what I'm going to do now is give you an opportunity to join the VIP list. I'm going to give you a link now, which is vip.ghosttreatments.co. If you click on that link, I've got some more information about the accelerator, and you can sign up to be on the VIP list. And that means your name's there, you're signed up, you're registered. I've got a live presentation tomorrow to a few production houses. I'm going to a production house in Sydney here. I'm seeing a few people face to face, but what I'm giving you now is the opportunity to get in first and get on the VIP list and register now. And then once I've got your email, I will send you more details. So, Remo, John, Mike, hope that's been useful. If you're interested in moving forward and clawing back 2020, getting revenge on it, sticking a pineapple up its ass, and moving forward powerfully and productively into 2021 with pitch perfect presentations, go to vip.ghosttreatments.co and register. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. See you later. Take care. Bye.